we'll go for the record. Okay, we'll go for the recording. Y'all might have to approve it, but okay, so we're dropping into sandbox meditation. Feel as if you are in a sandbox, actually, where you can sit on the sand and just with your awareness, you can look anywhere, just like you can with your fingers in the sand. There's really no boundaries in the sand. You can feel out with your vision, with your internal vision, your sensing, and you can feel down in to your body. Feel the silence that's there. Feel how the silence that is outside of your body is continuous as you transition from outside the body into the body and then through it and maybe out the other side. The sandbox nature of playing in the silence that's already here. Check and see if your posture is effortlessly, relatively upright. My shoulders needed to drop. My chin can come back. Now I can feel more up above my heart, from my heart out in front of me and up. Just that little postural shift that I didn't know I could access until I just adjusted my posture. And with awareness, feeling the silence around the body and then through the body and back out of the body, and then the body come down into the pelvis and then down. Through your legs, around each knee. Feel one from the inside out and then the outside in. And notice any places that might show up as tension or continued thought process with like an agenda, like a thought that doesn't want to let you go. Those would be signs that your or my will is active, that I have a will, I have an agenda. My will is always present whenever it wants something other than what's happening right now. And because the my will is also a God's creation, we don't need to try to push it away, because that would also be a my will, an action of my will. Just noticing it and letting that be there. As we move. The heart's will is what's happening right now. And my will oftentimes is opposed to the heart's will. See if you notice what you're noticing. And see if by giving yourself a little nudge to receive what you're noticing, you can actually receive it. Notice the difference between noticing and receiving. And then if you're able to, just observing some part of you. Like I'm going to say your hands because they're easy. I'm looking at the back of my hand. Such truly bizarre things. And if looking at your hand seems to contort your posture too much, you can do it with your breath and feel. The breath is a little bit harder because you're just feeling it. And I like the looking at my hands and Noticing that there are so many layers of meaning that are placed between me and the receiving of my hands being created in this moment. The story of what my hands can do and what they've done in the past, that they look like my dad's, that they, one that's got a broken thumb in the past, it's got a big bump on it. All the stories that have my attention divided. Part of me is witnessing my hands in space, but part of me is also recognizing all the stories that tell me what my hands are and where they've come from. So then notice the stories and let the story drop so that you're just receiving the vision of your hands. And that's all. I notice that there, when I'm receiving just the vision of my hands, and that there is no story, that it's the same experience with people, interacting with people, cutting through, recognizing that story is happening, meaning is happening. And that in the middle of the interactions, we can silently in the background ask ourselves to drop the story and receive the person as they're being created in the moment. And they may or may not recognize it. And we're all doing this in our own setting. Nate's outside, and I think he has birds there. And Shelly's in a car with teenagers. And so likely they, well, I don't know, maybe Shelly has her earbuds in, but it's almost a rather revolutionary, radical act to wake up in the middle of a soccer mom minivan and just be looking as though you're high, but not. Susan, I don't know what you're looking at. You got pretty plants around you. And plants are an interesting thing to look at and receive. So now as we're sitting here, connecting to receiving the silence that's already here around us, way outside of us, as well as super deep inside of us. While you're in this space, receiving the silence that's everywhere, also we can rest our focus on the other folks in this call from this place. Just including that person in our receiving, recognizing that we're all here. But you can also let the others who are in your tree of influence or your circle of care or influence, let them just open up the doors for husbands or wives or parents or siblings, and receiving each of them just as they are, with no agenda to be healing them or soothing them, but receiving them just as a tree receives me. No tree or bush, or it may be fully conscious of me. And if it is, it really probably only has a right brain. It probably doesn't do much, at least not in this dimension, much thinking with language anyway. All the plants or trees are able to do is receive us. You can go back to your exes, your ex spouses or ex partners or lovers, and let this space reset the fundamental dynamic between the two of you. This space is not in time or space. In space, we can sometimes, if there's a charge still, like a conflict still that is existing, sitting in space between us and our past significant relationship people, in this space where we're not having any agenda, again, it's just like a sandbox. You can, because there's no time, there's no agenda, there's no need to fix or heal. we can stick that person right in the sand next to us and bring our curiosity and see if we can receive that person without our story. And this is where some of the work is bringing that right brain, bringing the awareness, bringing the presence of now and being space into bringing it into those dynamics that there's still a charge. What would it be like to hold that person's hand and walk down the street? If I take one of those bullies that I got in a fight with in middle school, and I imagine holding his hand right now and walking down the street. Or rubbing their shoulders. Being the space that is receiving this person with an undefended curiosity aimed at where's this person's inner knowing? And this is our space sitting in our inner knowing, where the words will come up. These are the words that will come up from this space, where you make such a radical move as to love somebody where the culture, whatever our rules that we grew up with says, well, we shouldn't. They're and I like, you can choose whoever you'd like, but I think ex lovers and ex partners are really good ones to work with, because at one point we loved them so much, or we were projecting so much of our own love and fascination and future excitement onto them. And we can go there right now and feel our curiosity all the way up through their organ of inner knowing. And just like I did with my hands, where it took me a second before I could just witness and receive the vision of my hands that has nothing to do with what they've done in the past. If I have a hangnail, what that means, any fractures or breaks or anything they've done in the past, but just receive them. And the experience that the word namaste aims at, the experience of us sitting right here in our light, in our inner knowing, and looking in to see another's light and touch that. And we can feel from our tailbone all the way up through our organ of inner knowing, and do it in a way that's exquisitely blissful. Like you're a piece of kelp kind of just floating in the water as the tide moves back and forth. And seeing the bliss in somebody else's spine. And knowing that there's a situation in life that could be so dramatic, an event that could be so dramatic that could be life or death, that you could see somebody that was a bully, you could see an asshole dad or an asshole mom, somebody that you never fully repaired, and you could see them falling or getting knocked off their bike or something, and that your body, your inner knowing, would immediately cast off all history and follow that love that wants to move towards them and help be that entrainment. Because they're rattled. They may be lying there on the ground. And can you immediately snap into where is your bliss and inner knowing connection? And then can you quickly scan them and see that they are the same thing as your hand? Until the two of you start to breathe together. And see each other in that situation where, from the perspective of just being able to stay alive, you both were able to just let go of the past and recognize that love exists between you and anybody. Don't go getting dramatic about warring, my brain went to like, yeah, but what about the Russians? And then, we can skip the dramatic examples, but I think anybody in our life, I mean, the Russians are great. I'm just talking about people that are, actively driving around, blowing other people up. They might be a more dramatic example. So then, now that we've been doing maybe a little bit more of an edgy example, we can bring our awareness back into ourselves, and then connecting with the others here in the sandbox, in this Zoom call. Feeling the bliss that this breath thing moves. And the posture and the balance is bliss. And that with the posture bliss starts to overlap with the breath bliss, that the two of them actually intermingle. And I'm going to turn off the recording here in a second, but if you're listening to this on the recording later, you can spend more time feeling out and back in through your body. When you're at the store or at the stoplight or driving or interacting, you can flash on this. At any point, you can recognize that thinking may be happening, agenda may be happening, and you can drop all of that and just allow your inner knowing to be the only part of you that's present for even just a few moments, and then you can get back to the agenda. But those are the actions, those are the rituals throughout the day. That keep us closer to the heart's will. And not as entrenched in the resistance to whatever is happening during the day that we think shouldn't be happening.